any central bank is going to have to say, oh, well, we have the real gold-backed yuan or whatever it is now. It's not happening. It's impossible. And even if they wanted to do it, let's say we had these saints in charge of China, it's a ridiculous thought. But let's just assume that they're good people and they're like all Misesians now. They've learned Austrian school economics and they want sound money and they're now libertarian Chinese communists, whatever you want to call them. And they want an honest monetary system. So okay, fine. If they want that, they have to be willing to collapse their entire banking system and then risk assassination by the big bank honchos of their country, and they're going to get killed. So no, it's not happening. It's not in the DNA of the planet that God created. And this is where my beliefs get actually very strong, because it's the only way I can keep myself sane. I could be wrong, but if I didn't believe these things, I would lose it. So what I believe is that God does not allow a single party to take over the planet. This is a narrative that we had back in the Tower of Babel. Whether or not you believe that story is historical is beside the point. The point is that it's an ancient story, and whoever was the author of it, that's the message that he was saying. That when a single communist comes together and says, we're going to do this one project, and that's going to be the only goal, and everyone's going to be controlled, it's not going to work. It's going to stop. God's going to come down and stop it. It doesn't mean we're going to have literal divine intervention of a hand coming down from the sky and stuff. Every time somebody tries to take over the planet, it doesn't work. It's not going to work this time. The only question is collateral damage, and there was a lot of collateral damage after the Tower of Babel, probably, if I was in that society, and then it stopped, and then nobody had a job, and then they'd be starving, and it would be a problem. But if you weren't building the tower, then you're okay. I mean, hopefully you could be collateral damage also, but hopefully not. So CBDCs, a lot of wary people who are right to be wary are worried that CBDCs will destroy any liberty that we have left, and that, yes, that is the goal of the CBDC, and I don't deny that. But a CBDC is a derivative of a derivative of a derivative of a derivative of gold, right? It's just a higher layer on the pyramid, and just like the regression principle states that all prices have to go into the past, the CBDC has to be there at the top of the pyramid, relying on everything else underneath that's all still there. So the principle is you cannot stabilize a pyramid by building another layer that makes it even taller. It just makes it more unstable, right? In the end, if the CBDC is not exchangeable for gold, then it's not exchangeable for anything. Anything that is no longer, if you cannot buy gold with $1, if I come to somebody and I say, here's whatever, how many dollars do you want for an ounce of gold, and any amount, and I'll give it to you, and they say no, then the dollar doesn't buy anything, nothing, because gold is the money and the dollar is just the derivative. So they'll try to build a CBDC layer. It's not going to work. It will make the pyramid even more unstable. When it falls, all the purchasing power will go back into gold anyway.
Central bank digital currencies promise convenience but conceal control. They sit atop a fragile economic pyramid, layers of digital promises built on fading reserves of real wealth. Each new layer stretches the structure thinner. Economic law dictates no pyramid can be stabilized by making it taller. CBDCs are not new money. They're the furthest abstraction from reality, derivatives of dollars, which are themselves derivatives of gold. When faith breaks, the illusion collapses. The lesson is simple. Money detached from tangible value cannot last. The tower may look advanced, but it stands on sand, not stone.
The stable coins, I don't think they're going to be able to implement them in time to before the end game hits, because I said I think we only have a few months left. I'm looking at the price action of gold. What are we at now? Are we past 41.50? It could be. I don't know. You know, every day gold can go up $300 now. It's like that happens. That's a thing now. The Stable Coin Act, whatever it's called, let's get the Genius Act. The Genius Act. All it is they just want to create another round of tickets on top of which will be backed by treasuries, which are backed by dollars, which are backed by gold, right? It's just another derivative layer. So for example, if we just let's get out of the stratosphere for a second where the CBDCs are and go back to what we can recognize: bank deposits, right? Bank deposits operate on a fractional reserve system where not all of the physical dollars are there. If you want to take out your cash, you can't do it all because only a certain fraction are there. Let's say 10%, it could be less. So you have everyone using bank deposits on a pile of cash reserves that don't actually exist. But the bank deposits stabilize the cash until there's a bank run, which there always is. So the stable coins would be like the equivalent of bank deposits to what bank deposits are now for dollars. Except you have the treasuries in the middle there. It's like several layers up, but it's the same concept, right? You'd have all these people with a bunch of stable coins, which would be backed by a smaller pile of treasuries, where everyone with a stable coin would think they have the claim to a certain amount of treasuries, but they don't, because that amount of treasuries doesn't exist. So until you have somebody, a whole bunch of people, a whole bunch of parties cashing in their treasuries so they can cash in for dollars, and then it doesn't work, and then what has to happen is that the Fed has to bail everything out again. But it's just a bank run at another level. And there's no immunity to economic law, no matter how far into space you are. It's all based on the same pyramid that's attached to the ground, based on gold and silver. And no matter how high you go, you can't separate the pyramid from the ground and completely detach it from physical corporeal reality, because otherwise prices have no meaning, and then the entire division of labor breaks down completely.
Modern finance operates as a vast pyramid scheme of trust. At the base lies gold, immutable, scarce, real. Above it rise layers of currency, debt, and digital assets, each further from the foundation. Banks hold only fractions of the money they claim. Stablecoins mirror the same illusion, promising claims on treasuries that can't all be redeemed. When one layer fails, the next collapses in sequence. History calls it a bank run. But this time, it won't be local. It will be global. The ultimate truth remains: real money doesn't need a promise. It needs weight.
Do you think different parties, whether they're central banks, nations, I read about China setting up these gold yuan exchanges. Do you think the smart money is preparing for what comes after this crash with gold?
No, I don't. I think that's all a myth. I've looked into this whole central banks are buying gold scheme. They're not. Central banks have a lot less gold than they did in the 1950s. There are certain isolated central banks that sometimes accumulate and then they sell it, and they accumulate more than they sell it. But on net, they're not accumulating anything. That's not happening. China is not preparing for a gold-backed yuan. That's not going to happen. It's impossible. Because in order to have, look, if gold is money and everything collapses because the derivatives no longer work or the credit no longer works, China, no country can say, well, everything collapsed. Well, now you can trust my ticket, my yuan ticket, for a certain amount of gold, and believe me, it's there. And everyone says, oh, sure, great. What? We're going to trust China now. Right? After America stole everything and printed everything and inflated everything up the wazoo, we're going to go to China? And okay, so that's first of all. It would have to be a credible gold standard, which means that people would have to be able to take their yuan to the Chinese central bank and say, here, give me my gold. And this would have to be openly exchangeable, very verifiable for months, years. America was only able to build a huge inflationary pyramid, gargantuan, massive global inflation pyramid, because it had such an honest, relatively honest monetary system for so long, for centuries. There were isolated bank runs, yeah, but those cleared out. There were minor depressions on those bank panics. Every time there was a bank panic, it cleared out a small layer of inflation that was corrupting the system, and it brought it back down to the base and brought back down money to a more honest base of what it was. Right? And then you could rebuild from there. It's like building tiny pyramids. They fall, but people still trust your base. There's no way that after this dollar system falls, on which the yuan right now is based, after that falls, any country, any central bank is going to have to say, oh, well, we have the real gold-backed yuan or whatever it is now. It's not happening. It's impossible. And even if they wanted to do it, let's say we had these saints in charge of China It's a ridiculous thought. But let's just assume that they're good people and they're like all Misesians now. They've learned Austrian school economics and they want sound money and they're now libertarian Chinese communists, whatever you want to call them. And they want an honest monetary system. So okay, fine. If they want that, they have to be willing to collapse their entire banking system and then risk assassination by the big bank honchos of their country, and they're going to get killed. So no, it's not happening.
Many believe China is preparing a gold-backed currency, the supposed replacement for the US dollar. But this narrative is myth, not math. No nation can rebuild trust overnight after decades of inflation, secrecy, and credit dependence. Gold standards require redemption, a citizen's ability to claim metal for paper. No modern central bank will risk that transparency. Even now, total global gold reserves are lower than in the 1950s. The world isn't preparing for honest money. It's racing to preserve control. The gold-backed yuan is not salvation. It's another mirage on the horizon of collapse.
Okay, so the price of gold doesn't matter. It doesn't move. I mean, it moves a little bit, but it's money because it's the most liquid commodity on the planet. That's what makes it money. What's moving is the dollar. So your question is, how low will the dollar go? And my answer is it will go to zero. Because the only way to stop it from going to zero is to stop the inflationary pyramid and to freeze gold at a certain dollar exchange rate, and that collapses whatever that price ends up being. That collapses the banking system because, again, once you print the money, the banks need a constant feed of that inflation in order to sustain the bigger and bigger repo trades that go on in the aorta. Right? And if that stops, everything falls. So wherever they stop, if they decided to stop the hyperinflation, they would have to stop printing money, and then the entire global banking system would fall. If they want to do that, fine. And that they could rebuild from there. The dollar would still have purchasing power, but everyone who had savings in a bank, anyone who had a fractional reserve, stock portfolio, right? We don't know how many of those are fractional reserve, if the dollars are actually there, if the brokerages, they could just hightail it to Epstein Island or wherever they want to go. Nobody knows. Right? It's also convoluted. So people with digital money in the stratosphere somewhere in cyberspace, they would probably lose almost all of it, if not all of it. There'd be a huge legal mess as to who owns whatever's left over. But that's not plausible because they're not going to do that voluntarily. They're just going to keep printing and inflating until the dollar goes to zero, and they will let the people trigger the hyperinflation themselves. That's what happens every time. I can't think of a single historical example where a country voluntarily decided to stop inflation in the middle, right before hyperinflation hit. And they're like, oh my God, it's going to be hyperinflation. We better stop. That's never happened before. It always leads to the collapse of societies, the collapse of empires, the collapse of countries, and now it's going to lead to the collapse of the entire global empire. And yeah, that's going to be scary, and some people are not going to survive. But those that do, hopefully, we will be able to build a better world. And I'm just trying to take it as calmly as I can because I know what's coming, and even though I don't know the details of how it's going to affect us, I know it's going to be the biggest event of any of our lives.
Hyperinflation never stops by choice. History records no empire that reversed it voluntarily. The US dollar, once the world's anchor, now floats on a sea of debt. Stop printing, and the system freezes. Keep printing, and the currency burns. Each solution feeds the other's destruction. Central banks will always choose survival over honesty, even if it means total collapse. When the final confidence breaks, the dollar's value will not fade slowly. It will fall suddenly, as all fiat currencies have before. The coming storm isn't economic theory, it's arithmetic destiny. The empire of debt is ending.
The most important when it comes to silver is that you should remember that monetary demand is from everybody all the time, whereas industrial demand is always very pinpointed. And though there's a lot of it, it's a lot less than monetary demand would be. Back to the price of silver for a second. Are we going to get to 300, 400, 500? Again, that's not the question. The question is, at what exchange rate with the dollar will those who have silver just simply say, simply stop selling it and say, look, I don't want any dollars anymore. It doesn't. So what's the final price quote going to be on the final silver exchange between dollars and silver? I don't know. 600, 700. What does it matter? It doesn't matter what it's going to be, because in the end, silver is going to be the money. The dollar's going to be dead. So my bet, if I'm just gonna, like, throw a number out there, I don't know, $700. It could be twice that. It could be 3 times that. But I'd say, okay, $700. People would stop. Say, that's it. I don't want any more dollars. Just, I'm going to keep my silver, and that'll be the end of exchange. And then the dollar loses everything, and everything goes to silver. What's the difference between silver and gold? Well, when the dollar collapses, gold becomes way too valuable for retail transactions. So the only way you can accomplish retail transactions with a liquid commodity is with a silver coin. Yes, you have to take it in your hand. You got to go to somebody with groceries and say, here's a coin, give me some groceries. That's what's going to happen for a while. That's not going to be the world we live in for like years after that. That's just once you have, like a nuclear explosion, a nuclear monetary explosion, then for a while you're going to, after ground zero, you're going to need to trade around the actual money. And then, there will be people that are willing to store your money, and they'll give you tickets so that you don't have to carry it, and we'll start this whole thing over again. But hopefully this time we'll be a little bit smarter about it and not be so centralized. We'll see what happens at the Tower of Babel. The industrial demand for silver is important, only in a relative sense, because like in the 1800s, early 1900s, there was very little industrial demand for silver. Now there's a lot. I don't know how much of that technology survives after the end game. Hopefully a lot of it. Hopefully it won't be like, all capital is destroyed. It's just going to be reorganized. Some of it will be destroyed, but I think we should basically have our technological backbone intact. Who knows? I could be wrong about that. But that just makes silver even more valuable than it would be if this had happened in the 18th or 19th centuries.
When the digital towers fall, gold will store wealth, but silver will move it. In the aftermath, silver coins may once again buy food, fuel, and trust. Gold becomes too valuable for daily trade. Silver bridges that gap, reconnecting value to reality. History repeats not to punish, but to reset. Humanity will rebuild, perhaps wiser, less centralized, and more grounded in truth. The end of fiat isn't the end of civilization, it's the end of illusion. From dust and data, we return to earth and metal, the foundation that never lies, gold and silver.